Welcome back to another lecture, the podcast where we dig deep into pivotal historical narratives and uncover the nuances behind them. I'm Professor Alexei, your guide on today's complex journey.
And I'm Priyanka, ready to dive into today's topic, the Syrian civil war, a conflict that's been shaping global dynamics since 2011.
Let's get started. In essence, the Syrian civil war is a multi-layered conflict involving a variety of factions, each with distinct narratives and goals. Think of it as an intricate web of power struggles, where allies and adversaries frequently shift. The academic community refers to such a scenario as a proxy war, where foreign powers support different factions to forward their own geopolitical interests.
I'm curious about how these multi-layered dynamics actually play out in real-life terms. For clarity, can we define some of the key terms, like the Ba'athist movement and the Arab Spring?
Certainly. The Ba'athist movement, to begin with, is a political party advocating pan-Arab socialism, which has ruled Syria since the 1963 coup. This regime, under the leadership of the Assad family, colored much of Syria's political landscape. Then we have the Arab Spring, a wave of anti-government protests that began in 2010 across the Arab world, catalyzing uprisings against entrenched regimes. Now, in this context, the Syrian civil war is also understood as a proxy war, where indirect confrontations between powers unfold through local actors.
Okay. If I may suggest, it's crucial to understand the impact these events have, not just on the immediate region, but globally, especially the massive refugee crisis and socio-economic toll.
Precisely, Priyanka. This crisis, displacing millions, has stretched international aid frameworks and reshaped regional demography. Notably, the Syrian government's approach before the conflict fostered economic disparities that fueled discontent. Mismanagement of early unrest converted civil grievances into one of the most devastating conflicts of our time. Now, moving forward, let's unravel the basic timeline. In 2011, inspired by the Arab Spring, Syrians took to the streets against President Bashar al-Assad. What began as demonstrations pivoted to armed resistance by 2012. Essentially, a civil war emerged. Later, Russia's 2015 intervention significantly swung the war's momentum. By 2023, the conflict settled into a stalemate. Heavy fighting subsided, yet resolution remains elusive.
Isn't it interesting how history often hinges on pivotal moves like Russia's intervention? It makes me wonder how the dynamic would have shifted otherwise.
Indeed. It's important to understand that these decisions often sculpt subsequent geopolitical landscapes. And on that note, allow me to share my personal research journey through the labyrinth of international relations, particularly in noting how geopolitical strategies pivot based on these wartime decisions. Speaking of, let's explore some fundamental questions that persist. Big question number 1. Did environmental factors, such as the 2006 to 2011 drought, play a role alongside socio-political issues in sparking this conflict? While it's debated, the narrative weaves through economic hardship compounded by long-standing government oppression.
From a different angle, I'm curious about whether other unnoticed factors contributed, like maybe cultural elements or external pressures.
It makes one ponder indeed. Some scholars suggest local grievances, when combined with global narratives, are critical in understanding these eruptions. Now, moving to big question number 2, the notion of successful early international intervention posits a world where 2012 didn't escalate. However, power struggles often eclipsed peace efforts.
Let's consider this. If peace had been achieved early, how might that have shifted the fabric of international relations today?
Theoretically speaking, successful mediation could have reallocated resources, perhaps even curbed extremist influence. This brings us to big question number 3, the implications of ongoing proxy engagements. Foreign interests continue to anchor in Syria, manifesting through support for factions like the Syrian Democratic Forces versus Assad's allies.
If I may suggest, isn't it perplexing how such dynamics linger? I often think about possible future outcomes depending on these entanglements.
Ah, yes. The future of Syrian geopolitics hinges on these very entanglements. Areas for further research could delve into the dynamic evolutions among global powers and the autonomously ruled regions within Syria.
In simpler terms, the Syrian civil war is far from just a regional conflict. It's a web of global implications with lessons still unfolding.
In conclusion, as we unravel these threads, one thing remains clear: the interconnectedness of international narratives and the amplitude of their implications. For further exploration, Understanding other proxy wars and the humanitarian costs involved can deepen our grasp of these complex tales. In this pursuit of knowledge, I encourage you all to question, explore, and aim for understanding above all. Until next time, I remain your humbled guide, Professor Alexei.
Thank you, Professor. Let's continue to seek these layers of insight and understanding. And thank you, listeners. Until next time.